All right, but I think it's about time to start. I officially want to welcome everyone to the webinar. I welcomed you guys before as well, the viewers, letting you know that we're starting at 12, which it is now. I'm gonna stop sharing the waiting screen. It's glad everybody's here. We're going to record this session, so yeah, we can share it afterwards as well for anybody who's interested. So if you have any friends who want to watch it, we will share the YouTube link soon. We're here to discuss the state and future of anti-cheat with Eric from Playwin and Michael from Gameye. Welcome, official welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great you're here. And I want to let people who are watching know there are a couple pouring in. I see that it's possible to ask questions via the chat. Maybe even later you can ask permission to join the session and ask questions via video as well, if you like. Otherwise, just do it via the chat, either the event or the session chat. I try to keep an eye on both, so you guys don't have to, and you can chat away. And I might interrupt here and there with a question if there are any. So let's hope there are some. Maybe it's good if you both introduce yourselves as well, what you do, where you work. I already said it, but maybe it's nice to repeat it. Eric, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. So I'm Eric Grono. I'm the head of data at Playwin, and as a company, we're interested in identifying and tracking user behaviors, and one of these is anti-cheat. And our main product right now is Counter-Strike anti-cheat, but we also have a PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds product as well.
Nice. And Michael?
Awesome. Yes, I'm Michael Assis. I head up support and integrations here at Gameye, as well as a bunch of other stuff. What Gameye is, we're a server orchestration layer. Basically, we can deploy sessions anywhere in the world, click of a button or call of an API, as well as able to integrate third-party kind of tools and plugins and systems that help complete the overall kind of multiplayer gaming experience.
Sounds good. So today we're talking about the state and future of anti-cheat. I know you guys prepared like a structure for this and a little bit of a setup. So I would say the floor is yours. Take it away. Thanks for the introduction. And I'm very curious what you guys are going to talk about. Go for it.
Thank you, Jürgen. Cool. So first thing I guess we'll cover is how Gameye and Playwin work together, what we're actually trying to achieve. So as I mentioned, multiplayer Gameye is a multiplayer orchestration and session management tool, which integrates third-party kind of software and tools that helps us to provide this package to our game session customers. So what that means is when it comes to our integration with Playwin, we effectively can run a session, players can join, they can play their game. Once the session ends, we then transfer some set predetermined data over to the Playwin guys and their system. And then it's at that point that Eric and his team kind of takes over in order to determine whether a player's been cheating or what's kind of going on within the game session. So I guess, Eric, what happens once it hits your side? What do you guys look at? What do you do?
Right. So yeah, like you said, you guys send us the a URL to get the demo file from, and a webhook URL to like post the results to. So we download the demo, we parse it because it doesn't come in JSON. Valve has some proprietary data format or some data format they use. We turn it into JSON, extracting things like game events and what are called, I guess, we call player updates, which you get every tick, like where a player is looking, where they are located, things like that. And so we don't right currently in our products we don't use any machine learning. We look at the data for the players, and we've identified certain characteristics of cheats, primarily aim and spin, but we do look at a few other things as well. So what that means is, like, for example, the bread and butter of it is that we take the view direction data, where the player's looking. It's put it into like a proper spherical coordinate system where you have one angle for vertical and one for horizontal direction, and we look at what happens there. Like, what does the player's crosshairs, what do they do? Now, this is not wildly different information than you get when you're watching the demo in a replay, like in playing the demo back in the game. But you'd be surprised, things that are really subtle watching the demo can be a lot less subtle while looking at the demo, or looking at the data in time series. It's not to say it's easy. Like, there are definitely cheats that are hard to tell even from this perspective, but there are a lot that are quite easy now. So after we've done processing that, well, actually, I should say what else we do. We also look at check for players we do a little bit of identifying strange behaviors, not really cheats, but like we look for players being AFK, and our wall hack test is not ready to be qualified as like we don't convict off it, but we have a test of, is this player maybe doing something strange in this regard? And also spin we do, and a lag hack check as well.
So out of those kind of list of cheats, what would you say is the easiest to detect based on kind of the information that you have, the data you have, and then what would you say is the most difficult to detect?
So from this perspective, walls is the most difficult. Well, like ESP or wall hacks, because we don't know where the walls are. So it basically makes it impossible to convict right there. So we essentially just look for unusual behavior in terms of looking at players, like outliers in that regard. But yeah, that's an area that we, like even machine learning probably do better. But we think that walls may be better solved with a different approach. So we haven't pursued that very far right now.
Okay.
The easiest is probably spin. Spin it's pretty hard to miss.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of curious to know, I guess, what's going on from Valve's side in I watch Overwatch cases on YouTube quite often, and people get sent a lot of spin bot cases, and I'm just curious. Like, I mean, I understand they don't want to, touch false positives, but I think that with appropriate restrictions of your search space, like your search when you look for spinners, I think that it's pretty solvable. So I don't know. And aim is a bit in the middle. There are some aim cases that are a lot of aim cases that are very easy, and the ones that are at the time of detection are not even picked up by VAC or anything yet. But then there are plenty that are quite challenging as well.
Now, going back to kind of game developers and studios, publishers not necessarily detecting their own cheats. Why do you think that is? Do you think they're potentially scared of the outcry of people being falsely banned, or do you think it's that cheating is too difficult and they're too kind of close to the product? They need to take a step back and kind of view it as a whole thing.
It's hard to say. I mean, in some cases, I guess it's a question of like how much money they want to throw at the problem. I mean, not a lot of my understanding is not a lot of people are approaching the problem from the angle we're doing it. So, I mean, I don't know. It's not novel, so I guess I'd be surprised if that was actually true. But, I mean, from Valve's perspective, like I know they're working on, they have VACnet, things like that. They're doing like quite advanced stuff, but I'm actually not sure. Like maybe they're hoping to like, dream big and knock it out of the park with, a big complex machine learning algorithm. But I don't know. We're not sure that that's, what the future is for that, because like a big problem with VACnet is, it's, while Overwatch is amazing, and that data set is excellent. The problem is that Overwatch only convicts on people, when they're guilty beyond a doubt. Basically, that's the idea. And with machine learning, essentially you get out what you put in, and so they only ever put in stuff that's obvious to a watcher, and so they're only can get out what's obvious to a watcher. So I don't think you can get VACnet beyond this point. At least, like, I don't see a path. So, for other companies, maybe the question was broader, moving away from Valve. That question of investment and how much money they want for the problem, and is it good enough? And I mean, a lot of these games are super successful despite cheating. So maybe they're right. Maybe you do a little, and that is enough, and people will just like suffer through the rest. I don't know, but at least we're dreaming of a better world, I guess.
Yeah, of course. So kind of moving on to that. Say Valve or Blizzard, I don't know, one of these big gaming companies has a problem with cheaters. Say they want to use Playwin. How would they go about kind of integrating Playwin into their kind of services? What would they be doing? What would they be working with you guys to achieve?
I mean, I guess it depends what they're interested in. Like we're open to partnering with developers and like doing bespoke stuff, but I guess it all depends what they want to know, like and how much they're logging to begin with already. Like a lot of big games still do not log very much or at all, and so the first thing I guess we would work with them on is getting their logging to a place where you can get useful insights out of it. And by logging I mean what's the player doing when, like what you get out of when you rewatch a Counter-Strike demo file, what you get out of there. Like basically you can rewatch the match. So that's the first step, and then it's a question of what do they think their biggest problem is, and we basically would want to like probably tackle it one at a time. Solve one problem, move on to the next. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of a Gameye potential customer, without integration and Playwin, with Playwin, if you're running your game sessions on our orchestration layer and have worked with Playwin to dictate what kind of data they need to track some cheats, the system's designed in such a way that whenever your session ends, it automatically sends over that data stream. So whether it be a demo file, whether it be some sort of log file containing a bit of JSON, that gets sent over to Playwin, gets run through their system. Now, once it's run through the system, Eric, what do you do? What does the game developer or publisher receive? And are you the ones that are banning the players? How does that work?
No, so we don't do the bans ourselves. Like we send back or a response through the webhook, and it's basically a list of players, with their name, their Steam ID, and then a list of tests. And we have documentation explaining what the tests do. But here, it's just like, test by name and then a Boolean if it's true. And if going forward, there's, I think we may investigate sending more information back, more specific information, like round information, because we don't catch everyone. I mean, I think that's probably goes without saying, but and so we haven't totally replaced the need for manual watchers. So if this ends up being what our customers want, like just to use us to give them specific things to watch to confirm, then we will consider including round information to like, hey, check this out. And yeah, I mean, sorry, I think that's the end of the.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, kind of, you mentioned you don't necessarily catch all cheats and hacks. Why would you say that you're missing, like, the top kind of 1%? Are they just way too complicated, or are they cheats that we just don't know about? How?
Well, so I don't. For us, it's not a question of like, what do we know about? Like, let's narrow down on like aim hacks for a second. Like what the players' crosshairs do when they activate the aim lock, differs depending on how they are configured, type of cheat, and essentially what, like, I mean, I develop our algorithms, and I just watch a lot of matches and look at a lot of data, and I've identified the signatures identified so far. I mean, we're not done. There's more to be done here for sure. But so far I found what I found, and it seems to catch quite a few players. I mean, but just like with anything, you only know what you know when you know it. So
yeah, exactly that.
Well,
I suppose the other thing as well, when it comes to cheating, just in general, it's pretty much an arms race, right? You'll figure out one way to detect an exploit, and then it will get patched out, and they'll do things in a different way. So it's constantly trying to iterate on that, trying to figure out the new and upcoming cheats, trying to.
Yeah. So while we don't do anything too fancy, I don't have any. I haven't prepared anything to show. Like, but it's basically we look at like where they're looking and X and Y coordinates in time, and what stuff happens there. And sometimes it's insane, and it's like with spin, for example, it's like, hey, this is not possible, and that's essentially it. Like, we're just looking at time, like the evolution of where they're looking in time, and for some things like fake lag, it's a bit different, but
yeah. So I mean, moving kind of forward, I don't know, 10, 15 years into the future, where do you see cheating and anti-cheat going? For me personally, I can see even happening now the rise of automation playing for people, machine learning algorithms actually playing the game rather than a human. AI is going to advance to a point where, in theory, it should be completely undetectable. But how do you see it from your side? Catching these cheats and exploits. What do you see the future holding?
So, I guess starting at the like the depressing end of things, interesting what you mentioned with AI making undetectable. At least from our side, if you have an AI that plays exactly like a human, then we'll struggle with that for sure. And on that side, I suppose you need something kernel mode perhaps to or maybe no, like if you can fake the hardware input so that it's undetectable, so that it just looks like a mouse cursor. That's, I guess, probably the worst case scenario. But it's not. I guess it's not all so bad though. Like you see with Valorant that they're doing some clever stuff with occlusion culling, and not. The idea here is you do not want to send any information to the player to the client that you don't want cheaters to have. Just like assume that basically any information you send to them, cheaters could get. And by not sending players in locations that the players can't see, you basically defeat wall hacks. And I understand Valorant still has something people are describing as wall hacks, but it's only for visible players. So I guess I'm not sure if that includes smoke. Like maybe lots of people see through smokes. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but you know, that's mostly defeated. And but with, you know, I've been reading about Denuvo's anti-cheat and some others. They're using machine learning to identify like outlier interactions with like the game process. That, you know, I'm not sure how. I haven't read anything or seen any results of like how effective that's been, but that could be promising.
Kind of fighting AI with AI at that point, right? You know.
Yeah, and then but the challenge with that is that you basically have to take everything to the developers and be like, okay, is this type of interaction allowed? You know, is this okay? And I imagine that, you know, I mean, I haven't seen that data, so I don't know how obvious it is to tell the difference between, you know, a bad outlier and a good outlier. I know in our case, like, there's definitely cases where it's on the verge of what I understand now, but, you know, I mean, it's plausible that even with machine learning, you know, if we can identify, like, let's say if every pro player has their own like unique signature, you know, and if you like use the machine learning algorithm to like identify what they look like, I mean, I'm not sure that that's true. I suspect it's probably not true, but if that were true, then, you know, if they had like a machine learned aimbot that like looked just like a pro, maybe you could be like, well, okay, this doesn't look like anyone we know, or it looks like this player, but it's not this player. You know, I don't know.
So it's kind of like building up almost like a digital fingerprint of who a player is, how they interact with games, and then being able to compare.
But the ultimate problem, though, with using machine learning to detect cheaters from a data perspective, I guess from like a, you know, like what I described with looking at other processes interacting with the game, you're probably optimistic there. But from our side, you know, if you can't tell the difference by eye, and you can't, because you need to have like 100% accurate training data. If you can't make that and like tell it by eye, well, then your machine learning algorithm is hopeless. So it's a bit tricky.
Definitely a difficult problem to be trying to solve, right? But I mean, you know, there's people out there doing it. Obviously, you guys are trying to solve it. You know, us at Gameye, we definitely are trying to figure out some of the big problems around just, you know, DDoS attacks, any kind of just ruining the player experience, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we're so far from like worrying about, you know, these really hard problems, though. Like, there's so much low-hanging fruit to like knock out yet that, you know, it's not the end of the world. Like, I think we can go a long way to improving the player experience before we have to dwell on these super difficult hacks too much.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not even sure how common they are yet. Like, I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Yeah. That's the thing as well, is generally speaking, a lot of, I don't want to say good cheaters, but the better cheaters, they don't usually shout about being a cheater and the software they're using and how it works. So that does make kind of our jobs very difficult. You know, we have to dig into exactly what's going on. You know, a lot of times, even just a simple DDoS attack, you don't necessarily know where it's coming from or what it's doing unless you really start digging into it and almost reverse engineering it in a sense to figure out exactly what's happening, and then in order to build protection to it.
If you can remove the game running locally at all, you know, maybe that would be an interesting way, because then, like, if there's nothing in memory for a cheat to access, then really maybe all you're left with is faking, you know, reading the pixels on screen and like identifying, I guess, maybe like colors, you know, and then, you know, having some faked mouse input to get there. But the way I understand it is that there's even some ways to detect, you know, like faked mouse input, you know, looking for multiple, you know, mouse devices, or like multiple use at the same time, things like that. So I don't know. I don't think it's hopeless. Just we're a long way before those are the problems we're trying to solve, I think.
Just to pick up on a point there, would you say something like Google Stadia would be easy to hack or harder to hack based on the fact that you don't necessarily have a client?
Well, yeah, I think that would, like I was saying, I think that would be harder to hack. Like, I don't think it's I wouldn't go as far as say hack proof, because like God, you know, that's where there's will there's way, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm sure it would be a lot better. I mean, you couldn't affect the game state in memory, so that would cut out most everything. Like there'd be no way to do walls at all. I don't think you would never, like, never mind just being able to get who you can see. You couldn't get anybody.
Cool. Wow. Yeah, I mean,
you could probably still do some network connection based trickery though. Like that would be, I guess, your big thing then.
Just kind of lag hacks and things like that, forcing your
DDoS.
Yeah. Okay. Just kind of to wrap up the last 5 minutes. Have you, or what would you say is the most bizarre or interesting kind of hack or cheat you have ever seen?
Well, I mean, this is nothing new, but like spin is just so strange to watch. Like it just doesn't make any sense. Like, and it's so obvious too. I mean, like people say, oh, machine learning should be able to get spin so easy, but you don't even need machine learning to do it. Like you don't need machine learning to like do it at all. It's just, that doesn't happen. The only time, if a player turns their mouse sensitivity on really high, like what I've actually seen sometimes that threw me for a loop, where players just like were messing around, turn their mouse sensitivity on really high, and then just were like going wild. But the thing is, they weren't doing anything. Like they were spinning around, but they didn't actually like make any interesting plays or anything. And there's some, like there's plenty. So I don't really get a lot of context outside of watching the demo and looking at the data. I need to try and kind of like figure out, like I'll troll or like go through like cheating message boards and stuff, trying to like learn about what hacks are out there. Because sometimes you see something that's too weird. Like when I first identify what we're calling the fake lag test, I was just seeing this one player that across like 4 matches just had the weirdest looking telemetry. Like no one else in the match looked strange, but their telemetry had basically like discrete levels it would be at. Like it would be, for, I don't know, several ticks it'd be flat. Like they'd be looking in the same direction effectively, and then it would like suddenly switch to different direction, and then for 5 ticks they would like be there. And I was just like wondering what was going on, and then sort of came around to the notion that this could be a signature. I mean, I can't be 100% sure. It could be some weird network connection. I don't know, but that this could be a
generally speaking, if someone has
hack.
a weird network connection, they don't really get any kills and die a lot, right? So it's quite easy to see if someone's lag hacking because of the world, yet they're also top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, and it helped. Like for this, it's basically undetectable unless you turn off interpolation when you're watching the demo. Otherwise, CS:GO interpolates it away. And so I've taken to like, I didn't know about that for a good long time. So now I turn that off all the time. And, but yeah, it's strange. Like I think the idea is that it makes them slightly harder to hit. And it also makes it so they may get a peak advantage where they're around a corner sooner than when the players see them. But yeah.
Guys, I actually have a question that was sent to me. How does the technical implementation with Gameye actually look like? Is one of the questions.
So the technical implementation, it's, long story short, it is some code in the backend system. For the user, the customer, effectively, once you've signed up to Gameye as well as Playwin, we generate some auth keys. We generate a webhook URL, and we put them together in our backend. And then, like I mentioned before, once a session ends on Gameye's orchestration side, it then automatically sends over the data that Playwin requires, whether that be the CS:GO demo file, whether that be a log file. This is all predetermined between the customer and Playwin when they start to figure out, what kind of hacks and cheats they want to be looking for. And then once that data has been processed and sent to Playwin, it's on their side. They then run their analytics through it, make sure it's a complete file, has all the data they need, and then they basically test to see whether or not it's if there's been someone cheating or not.
Nice.
So I hope that answers it. It's a little bit difficult to explain exactly how a technical implementation is when it is just literally some code in a database somewhere.
No, I think that answers the question. I got one more, and I think you guys already talked about how the future of anti-cheat looks like, but the question is, what kind of developments can we expect in the future, or what kind of expectations do you have when it comes to development? So I think it's not like the general what does the future of anti-cheat look like you discuss, but what kind of developments are you currently working on for the future concerning Playwin, concerning Gameye? I think the question targets that one.
So we have like a player passporting feature that we're getting close to deployment on, where basically we look at the history, put in a Steam ID, and we look at the history of our service, and we use scrape Faceit and use the Valve API to get ban results from their services as well, and then just sort of like compile a report on this player's history, because if we have a client that the idea that like the problem this is like kind of thinking we'd solve with is we have a client that, let's say, they hypothetically don't want to convict unless they're confident by watching the demo, and meanwhile we're confident looking at the data that like, no, this is not okay. I guess, how do you rectify that? And these passports, the idea is that, okay, we've convicted this player X many times. Like, that's a demonstration of our confidence in it. Also, do they have a VAC ban? Do they have an Overwatch ban? But that technically we can only tell if they have a game ban, which Overwatch bans are a part of, and are they banned on Faceit? And so that's one thing we're working on. Actually, I do have a broader point to make, though, slightly beyond us. Like, I guess what the future holds. I guess I would expect like the big, games, Valorant, for example, set the bar here, to start making a much more concentrated effort on not sending like unnecessary information to clients, and that I think hopefully will become more standard. Like, I feel like Counter-Strike needs to achieve that somehow as well. Like, there's a source mod we're aware of that actually does like better occlusion calling for Counter-Strike, which is partly why we haven't really pursued wall hacks further than our initial test, was that we think that there's we're optimistic that this approach would be superior, that just don't send the information to the client and then we don't have to mess around.
To switch on my microphone again because I'm typing and answering some more questions. Just having a look, if there are no more actual questions. I see one from Samantha, but I have to read it first. Oh, you're suggesting an app, but to record everything. Actually, Hopin is recording everything for us. So thanks for the suggestion, Sophia. But we got that built in Hopin, which is pretty nice. Last chance to ask questions, but so I give it a couple of more seconds. But in general, thanks a lot, guys, for the interesting talk. I think we actually indeed gonna wrap it up, unless there are any last-minute questions. But yeah, I already asked the ones I got. Oh, Salim is asking something. Yeah, right on the verge of closing, Salim. Is anomaly detection relevant to detect cheaters?
You mean in the I guess the way I take this is like what Denuvo is trying to do, and I believe Salim reached out to me on LinkedIn. I think if I understand his company correctly, what I guess he's trying to do. I mean, I would say yeah. I mean, it depends what anomaly is. Like I guess I haven't looked at the data, so I'm only talking about what my impression is. I would imagine it would be relevant to detecting cheaters, but you know, with any data set, I guess it's a question of knowing enough about the data to know the difference between an ordinary outlier and a cheating outlier. So that's not always obvious. And but yeah, without seeing the data, I couldn't speak to the exact, like, you know, how realistic and how difficult it is. But yeah, I think that would be a viable approach. But my understanding is that, you know, I've been trying to figure out what games Denuvo Anti-Cheat is actually in, and I've heard that Easy Anti-Cheat is also has some, you know, machine learning going on. But you know, Denuvo, for example, I can't figure out if they're in any games right now. Like they were in Doom Eternal briefly, and then there was a outcry, and it was removed. But I'm curious to see how effective it is. But I don't know what game to like research to know what the cheating situation is like. You know, so I don't know. I'd like to see some results in the wild.
All right. I hope that answers your question, Salim. A bit difficult to judge without actual data, right?
Yeah.
But no. We're going to wrap it up here, guys. Again, thanks a lot for joining us, Eric. Thanks a lot, Michael, for leading the
Thanks
discussion.
for having me.
Thank you for facilitating and having us here today.
Yeah, was great to have you both. If there are any specific questions, viewers can, of course, reach out to both of you via LinkedIn, or reach out to me as well, of course, and I may relay the questions. So that's no problem. And I would say, have a nice day, everybody, and look out for the link on YouTube of the recording of this nice, interesting webinar. Thanks a lot, guys.